Welcome back, everyone, to the final session of the EV Summit here today. We've had a fantastic day with great insights and engagement, and thank you so much for coming along with us on that journey. It's a pleasure to introduce our next panel, the Webfleet panel, that we will be exploring the route to electrifying fleets. And very many thanks to Webfleet, our new EV Summit partner panel, for sponsoring. We warmly welcome you. Together, we'll be exploring the role of drivers, data, and strategic partnerships in the electrification of fleets. Joining us on this panel is Taco, the EV Program Director for Bridgestone Mobility Solutions, Hotze, the team manager at Riverford Organic Farmers, Mike, Managing Director of Vitol EV, and Tim, the Managing Director at Campbell's EV Consultancy. So we've got a lot to get through, but first I would love to invite Taco up on the panel to give us his keynote presentation.
Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks for joining this panel discussion. And what we want to discuss is the route to electric fleets and why drivers, data, and strategic partnerships are crucial there. So Bridgestone, or Webfleet, the owner of Webfleet, Bridgestone has been turning fleet data into value for decades. And what I tried to show here, there's all these different brands. Across all of these different brands, we take the data and we turn this into great value use cases such as productivity, cost saving, safety, or efficiency. And all of these data and use cases are now changing now that the electrification is coming. To give an idea, so it starts with taking the vehicle data and turning it into operational insights, which then could empower a transition advice. Which vehicle could you transition to an EV now versus later? Another use case. We take the EV data, we turn that into driving behavior. And driving behavior, that can lead to driver coaching, making sure that drivers take good care of those vehicles and drive with it in a good way. Or we take the EV data, we take the state of health and the consumption profile out of that data, and we turn that into insights that help a fleet optimize their planning, their trip planning. But here something new starts, and that is that actually there is the big new thing in town, and it is that the energy and the mobility systems need to start working together. Because that optimized trip planning, that gets turned into an optimized charging planning. And the charging planning, that will define what are the energy needs of that fleet. And then, if we have the energy needs, what will be the energy demand? What is the energy that we need to send there to that fleet at that specific time in that place? Now, and then there's also all of these reportings that are coming up right now, and all of this is happening. Now, and what we want to say is that the energy industry that the mobility industry now needs to connect with is already providing so much value. We've heard a lot about that already today. First of all, they create the energy, they provide the energy, they provide the equipment, they make sure that it gets installed and that it is serviced. There is the different sites, the real estate that needs to be owned for all of that. There is the ownership of the assets. Do they really want to own the assets, or do they just want to lease or rent it? And then there's also the operations of those charge points. Yeah, that's not something an owner wants to do themselves. And then in the end, there's the e-mobility services. But 90% of the value chain that is offered by the energy industry is not 90% of the value. And that's what I think is important, because we come from Webfleet. Have fleet data in that constellation will be more and more important. Maybe not so much for consumers or private vehicles, but very much for commercial fleets. For instance, what is the vehicle priority when the fleet needs to leave? What is the energy need that they need for the auxiliary systems, but also for the fleet itself? And what will be the time that the vehicle will arrive and leave? All of this is necessary to plan the right charging mechanism. So, electrification really requires the mobility industry to integrate with the energy industry. And this is why I'm so honored that we were a lot of good partners and friends that we could invite who were willing to come join us in this panel, is to talk about how we can do that. Thanks a lot already.
Thank you for that, Taco. And absolutely, sector convergence is a massive theme, isn't it, whenever we talk about e-mobility, 100%. Would love to explore that first, but I'm going to start my first question with Hotze. Riverford Organic Farms is 25 electric vans?
So my hub is 25 vehicles.
Right.
Over the whole company, it's 270.
Exactly. So love to understand what's your experience been in your fleet electrification journey, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yep. So we've done everything backwards. Riverford's 270 vehicles, or fleet vehicles. We're aiming for 100% EVs by 2025. We're currently at 30%. My hub is 25 EVs, and we're 100% now. So the good, we worked quite quickly out what the parameters were for the EV vans. So I think that was really important. We did that really well. So we worked out what the range limitations were. We used OptiDrive scores to work out which drivers were most capable with the EVs to see what the vans were capable of. We also used the OptiDrive scores to find out which were the worst drivers and put them in the EV vans so we could find out all the problems that they would bring up. So that meant that we kind of had a really good expectation of what's the worst, what's the best. Somewhere in the middle is where you're going to get your normal van usage. So OptiDrive was fantastic for that. We then adapted a lot of our routes and the way the drivers work. So a lot of the drivers used to take vans back home. It required us to have all the vans back at the hub. So Riverford has moved from having vans going back home and we didn't want to rely on the network for charging. We want to have charging done at the hub where it's cheapest. In the future, that allows us to go to possible self-generation, so things like solar panels, again, reducing our costs. So that ambition to go all EV has been really good, and I think we've done that really well. The things we didn't do well, we didn't plan for the power of the charging pretty much at all. We assumed that we would have enough power going into our sites to put all the chargers through and charge up all our vans. What that led us to is one morning coming in and half of our vans not being charged. So we then had to basically go back to having 50% of the, 12 vehicles, 12 vans that we'd bought. We'd bought brand new EV vans, were just sat on the side for 6 months while we waited for the DNO to come out and upgrade our power supply. It's one of those things where I think if you're looking at going into an EV fleet, start talking to your DNOs straight away. Work out if you will need a power upgrade, they will be able to help you with that. And if you do need a power upgrade, start booking that stuff in. You don't get to choose the date for that. That is something that they come to you and tell you when they're going to put it in. Once you have enough power on a site, then you can put in all the charges you want and all the EVs that you'll need. But that bit is out of your control. The things that you can do whilst you're waiting for that to happen are the driver training. You can adapt everything for an EV fleet. So I would also recommend doing that. So making sure that the drivers are aware that there might be you might have to go through a consultation stage with them. Bring them in, changing their work pattern so that they're driving into work, leaving the vans at the hub charging. Adapting your routes. So if your EV van, we found with the e-Transit, the route, they can do about 130 miles. Don't expect the driver to go out and do 160 without charging. You'll immediately come across a problem. They probably won't want to do that. So work within the parameter of what the vehicle can do. And then the transition for the drivers will be a lot smoother. And we found that by doing that, we had a lot less people leave. And actually, once they get used to the EVs, they all prefer using the EVs because they are being used within their own parameters. We're not expecting them to do too much.
Brilliant. Really helpful. Thank you. Tim, I'm going to come to you next, and I'd love to understand what kind of your perspectives are, kind of you're obviously kind of in the Logistics UK sort of network. Would love to hear kind of your perspectives on what are some of those fleets thinking about when they're thinking about electrification? What are the conversations that you're having with those kind of operators?
I think, first of all, trucks is where the fun is, straight away. Cars are boring. So if you want to do commercials, because you've got, as somebody said earlier, 600 kilowatt hour batteries, 540 kilowatt. I mean, for instance, if you look at the Volvo, that's got 6 90 kilowatt hour batteries, each of them weighing half a ton each. 3 tons of batteries, probably twice the weight of a car. But we've got things like legislation. We can't just go and drive for 10 hours or 15 hours. We've got like tachograph, working time directive. We can only do so many miles with 56 miles an hour on the heavy truck side of it. So we've got, and also we've got things like plated weights. So for instance, you know, for cars, it's already designed. Cars are down with 5 people or 6 people. They put some things and then the axles are loaded. For us, on trucks, we can actually end up putting 10 tons on one axle or the other. And that makes a massive difference on batteries, because if you've got a 3-ton battery or a 3.5-ton battery, where you put it for modular design makes a hell of a difference to the axle loadings. And also, we throw in hydrogen. People are saying, you know, where's this split? For trucks, you know, some people are saying hydrogen's the way to go, some people are going electric. So what happens is people say, I don't think I'll wait until something's decided. And unfortunately, if you put your head in the ground, you're going to get run over. So mainly to a lot of people, I'm saying, okay then, yeah, it happens. So it's just the way it goes. So what I did to a lot of the customers, obviously I was approached 4 or 5 years ago. National Grid worked out the fact that fleet vans and heavy trucks was where the problems are going to be. I worked for them 10 days a month for a year, looking at our strategy on the ventures side, National Grid Ventures, looking at the strategy up to 2040 in terms of where the hits were going to be, how the energy is going to be. And the good thing, I think, really and truly, what I'm really impressed with our industry, as a sort of the truck industry, we realise this is really all of us together. So we've got people like, and this is where the operators have got to work out, the fact we've got Daimler, we've got Volvo Group, which is Volvo and Renault, and we've got Traton, which is Scania and MAN. They're actually putting $500 million in and saying, okay, we'll build our own infrastructure because we're going to work together. We hate each other, but we're actually going to work together and actually put 1,700 high-powered chargers. We're talking about megawatt chargers. We're talking 0.5 megawatt to 3 megawatts. These are going to be water-cooled. It's a different world completely. So, and they've said, okay, then we realise that the fact that if we don't get an infrastructure in, none of us win. So instead of all trying to do it one by one, let's get it. And there's a big message I try to put to logistics companies. They're saying, okay, then, if you're on an industrial estate, if you want to take a DNA upgrade one by one, and you spend $500 million, because don't forget, you're talking 620, you're talking 100 of these trucks, it's a small village. So the fact that, hey, or do you want to really build a hub where you all chip in and you actually build one for 100, 150 trucks in there, and we'll go and do it that way. So somebody was talking about earlier on microgrids. We're going to use microgrids to take the strain off the grid. So we're going to use battery, we're going to use solar, we're going to wind farms. We've got a lot of private equity. We've got a lot of property companies I spend a lot of time with now saying, how the heck do we do this? We've got enough trouble trying to put 7 kilowatt, 22 kilowatt chargers in. What happens when you put 20 or 30 3 megawatt chargers in? What's going to happen to them? So there's a lot of things, and the customer is right in the middle of all this, thinking hydrogen, biofuels, and we're going to make money out of it, because that's an important thing. Having run 500 trucks myself, you know, in the end, I've got to get a bottom line. Is it going to get passed on to you as consumers in terms of that? Because you're talking of a truck, average price of a truck, and diesel, 85 to 100,000. An electric truck, you're talking 250 to 350,000. You're talking a fuel cell, you're talking 500 to 650,000. That's one. How do you square that? And this is why you get a lot of private equity coming in saying, hey, we'll build it all for you, and we'll spend over 10 or 15 years, you pay so much a kilowatt hour, and we'll take that thing. So there's a lot going on in the logistics industry to make sure that everything that you see here is brought by a truck. definitely. And we're in the middle of it all. So it's quite an interesting conversation, I'll tell you. So yeah, good fun.
Loved it. And I think you highlighted there the strength of the strategic partnerships as well, just as Hotze was talking about, that energy aspect, right?
Telematics plays a massive role in this area in terms of that, and even more. And the telematics for diesel is going to be different than telematics from electric as well, and they're working on that. You know, in a lot of cases, you know, you've got power settings, you've got regen settings, and when you've done the training, when they're out on the road, are they doing what you told them to do? Because again, those are sort of things that we're going to be looking. So it's really, as I say, a lot of people, we're doing 120 months what we did in 120 years. And it really is a massive change in that. But hey.
Absolutely. And Mike, obviously at Vitol EV, you're looking at maximizing on this transition. Would love to hear more about the work that you're doing in the fleet electrification space.
Yeah, it's great. I might be, I guess, duplicating some of the stuff the other three members have said. You kind of said it all for me. I think a couple of things, right? So just touching on your point, a typical van, truck, bus especially, 7-year life cycle. Many of them 8, 9, 10-year life cycle. So in theory, you should have bought your last ever diesel truck if you've committed to 2030. A lot of brilliant councils have declared a climate emergency, said 2028, right? Just so we know. And I don't know whether that's true necessarily, but if you look at the targets that have been committed, especially on the life cycle for the larger vehicles, in theory, 2024 is probably your last chance if you believe that your target can be met, right? Unless you're going to find another way of disposing of the trucks ahead of their life cycle, which is going to be very expensive. What VEV does, VEV, really punchy name actually, Vitol EV, but we're an energy company that does a turnkey solution. So the data that Taco provides us together with customers, and I'm thinking, Hotze, I wish I'd met you a couple of years back, right? But essentially, we help these large fleets decarbonize. We go from left to right. So the first thing I'd be saying to Hotze if he'd come to me or I'd come to him 2-3 years ago is I'd say first thing we do is a readiness assessment. Then we do a decent feasibility study, which is a simulation based on the data that you've talked about, Taco, that you create about what can or can't. We look at the grid upgrade, the timing. We look at the cost structure, the analysis versus your today diesel versus your tomorrow, recognizing your ROI. We then look at other things like solar and battery and microgrid solutions in order to help offset that power connection. And then we put a plan together. And then we say, we walk you from here to here over the next 7 years in order to get from where you are today, depending on how ambitious and aggressive you want to be. Why do we do this? Well, as an energy company, as Taco said, there's a lot of value for us, right? Today, energy is, if you think about a normal diesel vehicle, depending on the miles you do, it might be 25%, 30% of the cost per mile or the cost per kilometer. But if you look at how energy prices are going for electricity and electrons over time, and you look at the things that we need to do, you're probably talking 60, 70% of the cost per kilometer or the cost per mile, if you do a decent amount of miles, especially if you're doing trucks, right, is going to be energy. So the ability to maximize your energy generation on site, the ability to get the price structure for the energy at the right level, the ability to make sure the telematics doesn't make you overspend on the CapEx provision you put down at your site. Yeah, don't overspend on the cost per mile for your driver. Absolutely key. And data, Taco is right. It's right at the heart of it. Right? The other bit I think is, you touched on it about private equity, Tim, right? This is trillions of dollars, guys. This is not a small change, right? I was saying the figures of trucks I'm buying are 450,000 actually, so that's for an EV truck, let alone, and I'm sure Daimler and Volvo promised me they'll get them down to 350, but I haven't seen it yet. But fundamentally, there's a lot of money going in, and there's a lot of money that needs to go in, and our plan as VEV is to help you do that. And I don't see this as a zero-sum game, guys, right? Yeah, because of the volume of what needs to be done. It's not a small thing, it's a gargantuan thing, right? And if we all, I'm assuming that you guys are here, so you're believers in it, right? We need more believers, to be honest, because you have only one cycle left, yeah? And that's it. And you need to start now. And you talk about grid capacity, that was one point you raised there, Hotze. There is a massive grid constraint coming. And the people who secure their power now are going to win. And the shippers, the likes of Nike, DHL, etc. DHL and others, they're being asked as part of the tender process for their vans and their trucks, the big supermarkets, what is your glide path to hit your CO2 reduction, right? And I think there's a risk that many fleets have not, they're just waiting, but actually there is not much time left to wait.
Really interesting perspective, Mike, and definitely resonate with a lot of those thoughts about the burning platform as it is and as we see it. Analysis that Bain & Company has done has indicated that TCO has been achieved in key markets like UK and Germany already. Even with increasing vehicle prices and increasing electricity prices, we still see many use cases in fleets where TCO can be achieved 100% between diesel and electric. So Taco, I'd love to talk to you about what are some of the key challenges that you're seeing in preventing fleets from electrifying?
So I think we've already heard it all. There are some fleets, that start because they think we need to electrify, so they buy a few EVs. And then the fleet manager that has bought these EVs will talk to the facility manager or infrastructure investment manager. Hey, I need some chargers to charge my vans. Okay, fine, he buys. Ooh, that will take a bit of a lead time, it will take a bit longer, so you know what, I'll call someone that has some chargers. They put in the chargers in 4 or 5 different spots at their depots, and in the end what happens is they have 5 different back-end systems from charge point operators operating. And if they want to optimize their operations, which is changing along with the whole electrification, that's what they're then learning, it all becomes a bit messy. Now, and what first thing I think is important to do is make sure that there's a bit more planning going on. Now, the planning requires data. Of course, there's the data there from vehicles, but you also need to have the insights of that data. What is the new operation going to look like? And the new operation, that lies really the basis for that planning. In order then for customers or fleets to be able to come over those disadvantages or those challenges, is to also get into contact with the right people. And that is why we also believe it's really important to work together with partners. And yes, there is indeed that it's not a zero-sum game. Actually, we should all we have one enemy, and that's climate change, right? So this is what we should be fighting together. And this is also how we look at that. Let's educate, let's make sure that everybody comes together as soon as possible to make those changes. And let's also make sure that we build that ecosystem. Now, and of course, we've heard a few things, right? There's the operations, there's how the driver drives, what is the planning of the fleet. All of that is also systems. Now, luckily, Webfleet is already integrated with all of the systems that play a big role in mobility land. But now what we want to make sure that that is also easy to talk to by the energy side, all the systems on the energy side. It might not be computers talking, but it could even just be processes talking to each other. So, hey, you need to be able to get your grid connection fixed, or you need to be able to already order chargers over there. That's just processes, not systems. Now, these are the things we're doing to try and help out.
Absolutely. And just reflecting on what the panelists talked about, we're clearly hearing that there is a complexity in this transition, right? It's not a straightforward transition. There are lots of moving parts, lots of external bits that you can't necessarily control as a fleet operator. And then you're kind of sitting there and saying, it's quite big and scary. But Hotze, I'd love to be able to understand from you, what did you see as the value that you've driven out of fleet electrification? Because the best way to spur someone from something that feels big, complex, and scary is to say, well, there's money to be had.
Yeah, wow. So one of the things, Riverford is, one of our big ethical values is doing the best we can for the environment. So our brand reputation by going around in an old diesel van is kind of a bit tarnished, whereas if you're going around in an EV, especially in a town centre, you've got diesel surrounded, pouring out black fumes, and then you've got our van with a big branding on the side, and it's dead quiet. It just looks good for your brand, no matter where you are. There's everything about an EV is nice and quiet. It looks new. It's you know it's better for the environment. So brand reputation is huge. In terms, as a manager, if you don't like your local service centre, then having an EV is really good. The amount of days off the road that the EVs have had since we've gone fully electric, I think we're on about 5 days for 25 vans over a year, whereas our diesels can do that in a week. So we've saved a huge amount of time of the vans being off the road. Services take about 25 minutes. They are done in the hub, so we don't have to take the van off the road for a service. Repair bills have been absolutely tiny in comparison to the diesels we're running. I would say the drivers mostly prefer them, so almost any opportunity they have, we have some of our relief drivers who come in from different areas. They'll come down in a diesel van and they will ask to use an EV. So once they've got used to them, driven them once, they generally just want to be using an EV. They're quieter, they're easier to drive, and they usually, they're a lot more full of all the toys and stuff. So I know that sounds a little bit throwaway, but for the drivers, when you have all these things like automatic cruise control, you have full 360 cameras, it just makes their day a little bit less stressful. So we have less damages because of it. And our OptiDrive shows that all the drivers are driving to a higher standard in the EVs than they are the diesels. We had a nice bit, as I said earlier, where we had 50-50 split. All the drivers that were using diesels were 1.5 points or more below the EV standard. And as soon as we moved everyone over, there was a literal jump by a point across the whole 25 drivers in our hub. They all went up a point because they're just easier to drive in a nice, slow, considered manner.
Amazing. So I heard brand and reputation, I heard reliability, and I heard driver satisfaction. That's brilliant. I'm going to open up to the audience for a question in a second, so please have a think. I'm going to ask my final question, I'm going to come back to the audience. Mike and Tim, I'd love quick perspectives on how you're seeing this going globally. So what's happening outside of the UK on the EV fleet transition?
I think, first of all, globally, on the truck side, we've got people like Germany who are paying road tolls that are making sure the fact that an electric vehicle is charged less. I think Germany, I was in Germany a couple of weeks back, 25%, no matter what happens, it's zero at the moment, 25%, they guarantee the fact that we always only be 25% whatever the diesel prices would be. And then obviously I've had a home in the US for 17 years, so I spent a lot of time over in California, and they've got the California Resources Board, CARB, and also the Inflation Reduction Act. For instance, we've got a truck at the moment, our plug-in grant is 25,000. I put a post on LinkedIn that showed the fact that they were advertising a plug-in grant of 273,000, $250,000. Slightly different. So basically what they're saying is, whatever the difference is between a diesel and an electric, we'll subsidise the difference in terms of that. So you've got some really different players. And one other thing I would say is, the biggest thing then is the infrastructure at the property. How many of you rent at the moment? I'm not asking you a question, but would you spend millions on your place if you had a 5-year deal or you were renting for leasing? No. So again, the biggest issue straight away for us is the amount of trucks. Is if you're renting, I've got a lease for 5 years and you're being asked to upgrade, and literally for trucks you're talking maybe certainly a 6-figure sum, if not a 7-figure sum. This is going to change the way properties work as well. You've got to at least go for a 10-year with a 5-year break clause, but that's or you own your own properties. So again, this is having an effect on the property market, and the same in California, no matter what it is. Short and sweet. There you go. How's that?
It's brilliant. Thank you, Tim.
I think, I don't want to say about laggards, but if you take, for example, Norway or China, yeah, you can just see what's happening, guys. I think it's mainly on B2C, but China, by the way, you can't get in a bus that's not electric in China in any of the cities. Yeah, you can't get in a taxi in Shenzhen that's not electric. You can't get into a ride-hail vehicle that's not electric, right? So they're 10 years ahead of us easily, and the trucks are coming already in China, right? So you're starting to see refuse collection trucks that are going electric already. You're seeing 7.5 ton going electric already. You're seeing 18 ton going electric already. So, whilst we're in love with ourselves as the Westerners, there is a real proof point outside that shows there's a country out there that has led the way here through grants and other things, right? But they're no longer subsidised. And great to hear Hotze, right? One of the things that I think I impress upon the fleets I talk to, guys, is this is not about a massive incremental cost if you do it right. This is about a better experience, a lower cost, and a winning business, right? And that has not yet started to land. But Hotze's CEO is happy with this, right? The drive is positive. It's going to make him have a competitive or have a competitive advantage versus what they have today. And the guys who are doing it are laughing, right? Because they didn't realize that it was possible. So I would say globally, you can see examples of that, right? No one thinks twice about the fact that the vehicle that they're about to buy should be an electric truck or electric vehicle. They don't think twice about it in a fleet context anymore.
Love that, competitive advantage. Brilliant. Great, we have a question there. If you could hand over a mic, please. Thank you. Your name would be great before your question, please. Thank you.
Pete Sudbury, Deputy Leader of Oxfordshire County Council. I'm not in fleet, but one of the interesting things about EVs is because there are fewer moving parts and there's bits you can lift in and out, you might expect them to last a lot longer, and you're talking about an 8 to 10 year timeline for a truck. Do you expect that to be able to stretch? Because if you're going to spend 6 figures, it's not half nice if you can go up to 12 or 15 years with it.
Absolutely. So we run 500 and, I can't remember exactly, electric buses in Colombia, believe it or not, and trying to put a project together which has 214 buses in an African country, which I can't talk about just yet. But the cycle for those buses is 15 and a half years. We have one battery swap in year 7.5, and the buses are commissioned to do 500,000 kilometres. They operate from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, and they've been running for 3 years.
I'd like to see the business case on that. Any more questions? Yeah, no, yeah. There's one up there, please.
Hey, Ben Hagen. Question probably best for Tim. So as it relates specifically to rapid charging for heavy vehicles, what are the pain points, or to put it another way, what are the kind of capabilities that you'd like to see around the hardware? So it could be anything from, ability to scale to megawatt charging, energy integration, to the more mundane stuff like reliability, cost, etc.
It's obviously the cost of the DC chargers, and megawatt charge is going to be phenomenal. I think we can do a lot with the heat that's passed off because they're going to be water cooled. We're also looking at bi-directional charging. Hey, you've got 40 or 50 trucks with 620 kilowatt hour batteries. We've got to become a grid within a grid, a microgrid, whatever you want to call it, smart grid, so that we're going to start changing the energy across there, so peak shaving, things like that. So I think that's what, for a DC charger to be able to do that, obviously ISO 15118 and OCP 2.1, we've got to be able to enlarge that and saying, hey, this is a grid in itself, and we're going to use the energy to maybe do the air conditioning, do the lights, and do that. So I think that's what we've got, because 620 is the equivalent of probably 10 cars. If you get 30, 40, 50, 100 of these together, then there's a heck of a lot we can do with the energy, with battery, with solar, with wind turbines. So again, those are sort of things that I want to see. So I really want to see bi-directional properly taking off. We play with it, and I don't see V2X, I don't mean V2G or V2L, I mean V2X, V to everything, so that we can use it and whiz it around, and that's where my thing. Time will sort all this out, but at the moment we're at the beginning. We're what I call the messy middle. We know where we are, we know where we need to be, we've just got to do this little bit in the middle, and it's going to take a bit of a while. But yeah, we've got some, so yeah, does that answer your question?
Too long, Tim, right?
No, hopefully not. Oh, no. Yeah, exactly, that's it. I haven't got that long.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to the panel for those incredible insights. Fleet electrification clearly seems like some great value to be added to your businesses if you start to consider it. And indeed, the value that data and strategic partnerships can bring to that transition is pretty clear. So thank you so much for those insights. It's been brilliant. Yep, thank you.